Hi everybody, welcome back to Political Excess. I've got another deep dive into a competitive U.S. Senate election this time. Arizona is the state today, so let's get on Ballotpedia and start with a little bit of background. The incumbent senator is Democrat Mark Kelly. He is running for re-election to a full term. He first won election 2 years ago in a special election. He got a little over 51% of the vote, and that was good enough for about a 2.5-point margin. Prior to serving in the U.S. Senate, Kelly is known for being an astronaut. His opponent on the Republican side is Blake Masters. Masters is a venture capitalist and author with no prior political experience. So let's take a look at their primaries. Mark Kelly was unopposed in his primary, and on the Republican side, Blake Masters did have a competitive primary. He won with 40% of the vote over Jim Layman, who had 28%. And there will also be a Libertarian candidate on the ballot as well. So let's go down here and see how this race is rated. Cook Political Report has it at Lean Democratic, Inside Elections has it at Tilt Democratic, and Larry Sabato has it at Lean Democratic. My own rating has been borderline tilt to Lean Democratic. Mark Kelly is clearly going to start out with an advantage. He's the incumbent. He has the background as an astronaut. Blake Masters, on the other hand, is definitely a political outsider. The establishment did not back him at all in the primary. There's been issues with funding from Mitch McConnell. But Masters does have the support of Donald Trump, and that probably put him over the top in that primary. Arizona as a whole is mostly a purple state at this point. I still think it does have a little bit of a red tilt to lean, but it has demonstrated it is opening to electing Democrats. Blake Masters is being painted as too fringe, too extreme. There are cases where that actually will hurt him, but there's a lot of other cases where that kind of label just doesn't work anymore, and him being an outsider is a strength. But let's move on and take a look at the campaign finance. We can see that Mark Kelly has considerably more money than Blake Masters. There are all kinds of stories about funding being pulled out for Blake Masters, leaving him out to dry. And then when he started rising in the polls, the money has come back in a little bit. It's kind of a mixed bag on funding. But even with Mark Kelly's colossal advantage, he does not have a colossal advantage in the polls. So let's go down here and see how the counties are trending on a presidential level. I already covered this part on my Arizona Governor's Deep Dive. Be sure to take a look at that video if you'd like. But I will move a little quicker on this part. And we can see that there is one county that has 61.8% of the population in it that is categorized as New Democratic. And that is defined as having voted for Mitt Romney, Donald Trump the first time, but flipping and voting for Biden 2 years ago. And if we go down to this map, we can see that that county is, of course, Maricopa County. That has Phoenix. And we could take a look at these margins. And we could see that last time Donald Trump's support did tick up slightly from 2016, but it is definitely down about 6 points from 2012. And Joe Biden got 50% support last time. That is more than 5% higher than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. So Joe Biden carrying this county by 2 points, that makes all the difference in a statewide election, given the population density of this county. Pima County is another major county that has Tucson, and that is another county that has trended left. Donald Trump got about the same support as he did last time, over 4 years earlier, but Joe Biden's support has increased by about 5%. The rest of these counties, you can take a look at the margins if you'd like. Some of them have large native populations. Some of them are deep red, going over 70% for Donald Trump last time. And all this adds up to a pretty even state at this point. It definitely may be trending toward the left, but it's unknown as to what extent these trends are going to continue. Now we can also switch over here and take a look at the county map from Mark Kelly's win 2 years ago in that special election. There he got a little over 51% of the vote. Martha McSally had just under 49%. And Mark Kelly did win Maricopa County by about 4 points. And he also won Pima County by about 20 points, which is on par with how much Joe Biden won it by. So if Mark Kelly did about 1% worse in Maricopa County, that probably would have been enough for him to lose that seat. So the red counties are almost maxed out at this point. Whoever wins statewide is pretty much going to come down to the margins in Maricopa County. So let's move on to YouTube and see what they've got on their channels. Here's Mark Kelly's channel, and he doesn't seem to have much on here as of last month. I know he also does have a U.S. Senate channel, but as far as his campaign goes, he definitely has some older content and some ads. There's just not a lot recently on here. And here's Blake Masters' channel. Masters doesn't have a ton of content either, but he does have some ads, and he has some content from back in his primary as well. And we can also look at their official campaign websites. Here is Mark Kelly's site. If you want to read about where he stands on the issues, donate to his campaign, buy some merch, etc. And here is Blake Masters' website if you want to see where he stands on the issues, support his campaign, or buy any of his merch. And how about any debates? Well, there was one debate, and that's all we're going to get. It was a few weeks ago, and it's right here on C-SPAN. The link will be down below in the description. I did watch the debate. This debate also featured that Libertarian candidate, which is sometimes beneficial to get another voice in there. But I think most people wanted to just see Kelly and Masters go at it, and that Libertarian candidate felt like he was sometimes getting shortchanged on his time. And a lot of people were not familiar with Blake Masters, so this gave them a chance to see more about who he is. And Masters was on the attack. Mark Kelly, he was on the defensive, but he also laid down some attacks on Blake Masters as well. Most of that was on abortion. And Masters hit Kelly hard on immigration and the border. But I do give Mark Kelly a lot of credit on actually debating, as opposed to Katie Hobbs in the governor's debate. And let's move on to Wikipedia and take a look at the endorsements. Here are Mark Kelly's endorsements. I'm actually surprised there's not more on here, but he does have some, and he has a bunch of organizations. And here are Blake Masters' endorsements. He again does have that Donald Trump endorsement, and he has a bunch else from elected officials, individuals, organizations, etc. And that takes us down to the polling, and in the aggregate, Mark Kelly is ahead 2.5 points on Real Clear Politics, 45.8 to 43.3. On 538, Kelly is ahead 4.5. So how about the individual polls? Well, at a glance, we can see that Mark Kelly is leading in every single one of these polls, going all the way back to August. Some of the older ones he was hitting 50%, but the more recent ones he's struggling to hit 50%. Blake Masters is generally in the low to mid-40s. And keep in mind, some of these polls are either Democratic or Republican aligned. But over the last couple of months, the gap has slowly narrowed up. He does still have a slight advantage, but this race is on the cusp of actually being really competitive. And let's compare these poll results to how they stacked up versus 2 years ago when Mark Kelly first won election. So that race was almost a 51 to 49 win. And in the aggregate, they did overestimate Mark Kelly, probably by around 3 points. And that also means some of these did underestimate Martha McSally, the Republican. And finally, let's get on Predicted and take a look at where people are putting their money. And this shows us that Mark Kelly, the Democrat, is at 54 cents. Blake Masters, the Republican, is at 51 cents. This will, of course, change after I make this video, but as of right now, this race is definitely a toss-up and close to a dead heat. So what is the conclusion here? Well, the markets are not polls. The polls are not everything. Past polling errors might not dictate present polling accuracy, so there are definitely some unknowns in this race. Mark Kelly has the right background to be a U.S. Senator, Navy experience, astronaut, and plus he is the incumbent, and it's in a state that is trending a little bit toward the left. On the other hand, it is a red-leaning year. Blake Masters, he's an outsider. That's going to give him an extra kind of allure. There have been all kinds of labels and smears about how extreme he is, and that might be enough to have Mark Kelly keep this seat. But at the same time, Masters is very young, and he is more aligned with Donald Trump, so he speaks about many issues that are not polished and consultant-tested. He's definitely going for that more populist brand. He hits Kelly hard on immigration and the border. Inflation and crime, those are also issues that are going to be conducive to success for Blake Masters. Masters has also had to clarify his stance on abortion. He's probably had to backpedal a little bit on his primary stance. He's had to answer questions about election integrity. So there is a little bit there for Mark Kelly to leverage as an attack. And that's why this race is actually so close. Blake Masters does appear to be running a few points behind Kari Lake, and Kari Lake is regarded as much more of the in-your-face Donald Trump type of supporter. So I would think they would be less shy about supporting Blake Masters than Kari Lake, but Blake Masters is still trailing in the polls by a couple of points. There's more than a week and a half left for Blake Masters to surge late and actually come out with a win on Election Day. As of right now, I would say Mark Kelly holds on, probably by under 2 points. And with that type of margin, anything can happen. I do want to see some recent polling. There hasn't been that many over the last week or two. I do wish there was a second debate. But it's going to be fascinating to see if Mark Kelly can win as the sane, stay-the-course kind of a candidate, or if someone like Blake Masters, a post-Donald Trump type of modern Republican, similar to the style of J.D. Vance, if he can actually pull out a win. But in this kind of economy, in a border state, Blake Masters is definitely within striking distance. Whoever wins this one, it's going to be very close. So that is a deep dive into this Arizona U.S. Senate election. Let me know down below in the comments, are you following this race, and what do you think the margin is going to be? And if you enjoy this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.